Brandon Butler. I'm a research manager at IDC, where I cover enterprise networks, and it's great to be here with Juniper today. I'm here with Andy Ori, who's a general manager at Juniper Networks, and we're going to be talking about some of the keys to unlocking the promise of SD-WAN. And Andy, just want to say thanks for having me here, and looking forward to this conversation today.
Me too, Brandon. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So. SD-WAN is one of the fastest growing markets that we're covering at IDC. It's really been exciting to watch how this market has evolved over the last handful of years. And one of the keys for our research at IDC is that we do an annual survey on the topic of SD-WAN. We've been doing this survey 5 years in a row, and this survey surveys 1,200 enterprises across 12 countries. And so this is a global survey where we're really trying to get the pulse of the enterprise to see where they are in their deployment of SD-WAN, what is important to them when they are deploying SD-WAN. And so today we're going to share some of our most recent survey data from this annual survey that we did that talks about some of the key trends that we see in the SD-WAN market. So before we do that, I'm going to sort of set the stage with some high-level thoughts about where SD-WAN fits in the overall enterprise networking market, and then we'll dive into the data. So let's get started. So I wanted to start by talking about what we call the future of connectedness at IDC. And we really believe that the network is a foundational element for enabling the secure and scalable and efficient use of what we call third platform technologies. So that's technologies like cloud and edge and IoT. And overall, we believe that the future of connectedness in today's age is about enabling pervasive digital experiences. This is what organizations are looking to do. They're looking to enable these digital experiences. And the network is really foundational and key for that. And this chart sort of shows what I mean when I'm talking about this. You know, at the end of the day, connectivity is about moving data from one place to another. And if you think about all of the people and processes and things that need that data to move from one place to another, and then you think about sort of what the elements of moving that data from one place to another are. You need to create that data. You need to connect that data from one place to another. It needs to be contextualized. It needs to be done in compliance. And then the sort of outer ring of this chart shows the end goals of this data in motion. So again, we're looking for that secure and scalable access anytime and anywhere. We're looking for business continuity and reliability. We're looking for real-time insights. So again, this is sort of a high level how we think about the future of connectivity, sort of where we are today, how important connectivity is for organizations of all types and sizes all around the globe, and how important that the network is, the enterprise network specifically, for enabling this connectivity into the future. And as I said, SD-WAN is really one of the key technologies that we see enterprises investing in over the last handful of years to enable this data in motion, to enable this future of connectivity. And so just to level set about what SD-WAN is and some of the elements that make up SD-WAN. So when we talk about SD-WAN, this is really the idea of applying those SDN principles, the software-defined networking principles that we first saw emerge in the data center, and applying those to the wide area network. And so it's really about abstracting the underlay transport layers from the overlay management layers. And so by that, we mean SD-WAN enables the ability to leverage hybrid WANs, to be able to use WAN connections like broadband and fiber, MPLS, even cellular connections. One of the other key components of an SD-WAN is to have a centralized application-based policy controller as well that can manage that, that can dynamically manage that application traffic across those multiple WAN links. Having application and network performance monitoring is another key to SD-WAN that we see. We talked about that software overlay that abstracts the underlying networks as well. So these are some of the key elements that we see as being really important for an SD-WAN offering in the market. When we talk about SD-WAN, this is what we mean. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the ways that we see policies that are defined for the application. This really, SD-WANs allow organizations to set policies by specific applications, for performance guarantees, for security, for multi-cloud connectivity. So again, these SD-WAN platforms allow enterprises to really have more granular control over multiple WAN links to improve backup connectivity, to increase performance, to enable that secure connectivity to the cloud. Some of the other things that we believe are important for SD-WAN are around simple configuration, having policies that can be centrally configured and then distributed across the enterprise network. This is important because SD-WAN is fundamentally about connecting multiple disparate sites from the data center to campus and branches to those cloud locations. And so having an ability to be able to simply configure this distributed network, we believe, is really important. And then finally, around zero-touch provisioning. So a lot of times these SD-WAN deployments are being deployed at branch offices, at retail locations, for example, where you may not have IT staff on site to be able to manage and configure the deployment of this. And so we're seeing cloud-based platforms that are used to be able to help with this ease of provisioning and providing some access to new features and functionality as it comes about. So Andy, maybe I'll turn to you and see if you have any thoughts about sort of how I'm thinking about the future of connectivity. Does that align with how you're thinking about the future of connectedness and how you guys see SD-WAN's role in that?
Absolutely. I think that what's going to be interesting is that you have 5 slides where you're going to present some data, and I'd like to parse some of that data just to provide some nuances. Everything you're saying is true. When we started our business 7 years ago, we weren't sure, are we a software-defined networking business? Are we a software-defined wide area networking business? We just knew that WAN transformation was fundamental to digital enterprise transformation. And it is all about exchanging physical engagement for digital or virtual engagement. And all you have at that point is the quality of the experience. So I think you're spot on, Brandon.
Great, sounds good. So as I said, one of the keys to our research around SD-WAN has been this annual survey that we've been doing for 5 years now. And this really gives us a pulse of how enterprises are thinking about their wide area network in general and SD-WAN deployments specifically. And so, again, this survey that we've done, it surveys 1,200 enterprises across 12 countries. All 100% of respondents have at least 3 WAN connection points within their enterprise network. And we're going to share with you today some of those key survey results, looking at how folks are thinking about their WAN transformation, how they're thinking about what they're prioritizing in SD-WAN deployments, and some of the keys that we're seeing for more integration across SD-WAN and security, SD-WAN and local area networking in the campus and branches, and also around application visibility and control. So let's get started. So this first survey data question is asking about what are the 3 most significant challenges that organizations have when thinking about their wide area network. And overall, the top rated response was that security related to infrastructure as a service and software as a service and other internet applications is a key challenge that organizations have. And this speaks to how important security is across any technology deployment. As folks are thinking about deploying technology across any area, whether it be networking or any other IT area, security is going to be paramount and key. But the distribution of the enterprise network to include these SaaS and IaaS applications adds a new layer of complexity to that security. And SD-WAN is a platform to be able to layer additional security components on top of that connectivity to those cloud-based applications. And we could talk a little bit more about what some of those security components are. The second rate of response was around complexity associated with interconnecting multiple transport types. So we talked about this as being one of the foundational elements of SD-WAN, is being able to use multiple WAN connections from broadband to MPLS to cellular connectivity. Without an SD-WAN platform to be able to manage those connection points in aggregate, it can be very difficult to manage multiple different types of connection points. And so SD-WAN really is an elegant solution for being able to manage multiple different transport types. Some of the other top-rated responses, managing that consistent user experience for both on-premise and for off-premise cloud-based applications. I think we're going to talk a lot today about how important experience is, how important that network performance, that application performance is. At the end of the day, we want the network to be able to provide high quality experiences for our end users. And again, some of the other things that stick out to me from this slide, looking at the procurement around management and operations ranks pretty highly here. Cost effectively delivering SaaS and other cloud services across the WAN. You'll see in some of the slides here how important cloud and multi-cloud connectivity is to SD-WANs today. And Andy, before I turn it over to you, I just wanted to say that this survey data you can see on the right-hand side, this is consistent with what we've seen in our recent survey data around SD-WAN. So our last SD-WAN survey was actually done in 2019. We took a year off and focused the survey on COVID last year. But these top WAN challenges have remained consistent across the multiple years that we've done this report. So, Andy, what's your takeaway on this slide?
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I'm going to go back and pull out to maybe 7 to 10 years because things have changed. When you go back 7 to 10 years, cost was the driver. I've got really expensive WAN connectivity. I'm trying to affect security. I'm centralizing my trunking so I can run things through my own security. And what I'm finding is that it's really expensive. And so cost was a big driver. A second driver was agility. Just instantiating new services took a long time. And if we fast forward now to 2019, 2020, 2021, what you see is that security, eliminating complexity, and promoting greater user experience, these really are the top 3 items. And I think that they are essential to digital transformation. What's surprising to me in a pleasant way is that when I first met Juniper, I've been a Juniper employee since November of last year, I didn't understand what the AI-driven enterprise was all about. That's what it's all about. It's about managing complexity and promoting greater user experience while providing a high level of security, all for one outcome, which is to have a positive business impact. Because in the end, the only reason we're doing all this is to have positive business impacts. I will say that security has become increasingly important. I think that people are wrestling with security. I think that people were wary of the cloud 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I now believe people are listening to AWS and Azure, and they're talking about their investments in security. And I think that you're probably going to have the greatest investments and the greatest security probably in the cloud. And so the thin branch, the thick branch, the security in the cloud, I think you actually have to be able to provide all of it to customers because they are uncertain and they're not willing to give up on security in any one of those 3 areas.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, that actually leads in really well to the next survey data point, which is all about the cloud. And as you talked about, Andy, some of the initial drivers, I agree with you, for SD-WAN's sort of early days, a handful of years ago, were around the being able to manage multiple connection types, being able to have more efficient management of your wide area network in general. I would say today there are a couple major trends that we're seeing in SD-WAN, and one of them is around using SD-WANs to connect to these cloud-based platforms. I don't have to tell anyone on here how important the cloud has become across software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and multi-cloud connectivity in general to enterprises today, especially after everything we've been through in the last 18 months. We saw even more organizations accelerate their shift to cloud-based platforms in the COVID era. And so SD-WAN has become a platform for enabling that connectivity to the cloud. Fundamentally, connecting to the cloud is something that's done over the wide area network. So applying these SDN principles to cloud connectivity is really important. So this survey data asked on a 1 to 5 scale, how important is your organization's WAN technology choices to each of these areas? And we asked how important is it today, and how important will it be in 12 to 24 months? And you can see across software as a service, across infrastructure as a service, and hybrid and multi-cloud strategy, these are important today, 3.9 across basically the board for currently. And then in 12 to 24 months, in a year or two, these are going to become even more increasingly important. And you can see the highest rate of technology that's going to be important for WAN technology choices is going to be around that hybrid and multi-cloud strategy. So again, this speaks to some of the top use cases that we're seeing organizations deploy SD-WAN for. It's about connecting to cloud-based platforms and being able to do so in a secure and efficient way. And being able to have a management platform that can enable those experiences when you are connecting to the cloud and integrate some security components into that as well. Andy, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so everyone knows about the cloud, no question about it. Here are a couple things to think about. There's two sides to the cloud as it impacts businesses in our economy. There are businesses that we've seen that had to move from physical to virtual operations, and putting things in the cloud made that very possible, made their operations extensible. The second side is, remember when Mark Andreessen said software was going to eat the world? Well, there are no software companies anymore. People are providing their services from the cloud. So the cloud is all about monetization of companies that used to be software companies. So I look at the cloud playing this dual role for those that are trying to operate their business and those that are trying to monetize the services and the technology and the products that they're providing for those businesses. The other thing is that what this is saying is that if you came from Mars and you looked at all the packets flowing across our globe 10 years ago, and then you took that same picture today, you would see the literal shape of the network is changing. That shape change is fascinating. And it's only moving towards more complexity. And so we know we're not going to be in one cloud. We know that we're going to have private data centers. We're going to have public data centers. We know that the cloud themselves are trying to say, we're the place you want to host everything, but they recognize you're going to be in other clouds as well. So you've got data in motion. You've got the consumption in motion. This is quickly outstripping individuals' ability to be able to anticipate and to be able to operate their critical network, because they're increasingly strategic because everything is now digital. And so I think we're going to see this a really impactful use for AI. AI and machine learning is going to make a big difference in terms of managing security associations and providing, I think I just lost you all. I don't know if I did. No, I didn't. Good. AI will, in providing machine learning for security associations and route policies, and figuring out how to deliver these services. So we know what's happening with the cloud. It's just interesting to see how it's going to impact the way enterprises are going to have to orient their operations.
Yeah, and you made a really interesting point there in terms of how much more distributed enterprise networks are today compared to just 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The continued rise of the use of these cloud-based applications means that the enterprise network is more distributed than it's ever been. And then you add on top of it, okay, folks are working from home now as well, and it becomes even more distributed. And so as you have this distributed network, I think it's really key for organizations to think about a more platform-based approach to be able to manage this network. If you're relying on manual tasks, if you're relying on CLI commands to be able to manage this network, it just doesn't scale in this world. And I think the survey data reinforces that, right? The connectivity to the cloud is important today. It's going to become even more important into the future. And so thinking today about what sort of platforms do I have in place that can enable my efficient and secure use of these cloud-based applications and my distributed enterprise network in general, I think this survey data speaks to how folks are thinking about some of these strategic investments that they will be looking at today to prepare their networks into the future. So as we move on, the next survey data question is asking specifically about SD-WAN and what some of the top motivations that folks have for considering an SD-WAN deployment. And the top rated response here, I think, is really interesting. It talks to the more centralized policy management across the WAN and the campus networks, the local area network. So that would be like a Wi-Fi network, like wireless LAN or Ethernet switching. Basically, the idea here is that folks see an opportunity to have integrations across their wide area network and their local area network in their campus and branches. And why is that? It's because there's a tremendous opportunity to be able to have more centralized management across these disparate domains. Fundamentally, you're having folks connecting to cloud-based applications, connecting back to data centers from both of these locations, from the campus and from the branch. So you might as well manage them more closely together. And as we have these platforms that have come about that provide more integrations across management planes in the campus and branch, there are opportunities to be able to set policies once and apply them across both domains, across the campus and the branch, across the LAN and the WAN, to be able to get visibility and analytics across the LAN and the WAN. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but this is one of the keys that I think is really driving the SD-WAN market today, and our survey data reinforces that. Some of the other top responses here. Oh, sorry, Dan, you want to comment on that?
No, go ahead. I didn't.
Okay, sure.
I thought you were done.
Yeah, some of the other top responses here, opportunity to save money. So, we talked about this as one of the initial key drivers of the SD-WAN market a couple years ago, but this is continuing to drive the market today. So folks, there are obviously opportunities to have more efficient management, to improve that connectivity to the cloud, but this is one of the reasons why we've seen the SD-WAN market continue to be one of the fastest growing segments of the networking market that we track, is because it does allow folks, give them an opportunity to potentially save money. How do you do that? Well, if you're able to have a secondary connectivity type that's less expensive than your primary connectivity type, that's a way. Being able to have more efficient management across your wide area network, maybe across your WAN and your LAN. These are all ways to create efficiencies within the management of your organization and potentially save money on some of the connectivity costs. The third response here, improving automation and self-provisioning. Andy, you've talked a little bit about this AI-driven networking. I think this is going to be another key for the future of this market, of being able to have increased levels of automation. Like we talked about, the distributed nature of enterprises today, it just doesn't scale well if you're trying to manage those manually. And so being able to have improved automation and self-provisioning capabilities is another top driver for implementing SD-WAN. So some of the other things that I found interesting here, about halfway down, you see the first step towards broader virtualized network services and deployment at 21.5%. I think this is going to be another key that I wanted to point out here. This is a trend that we're starting to see where organizations are looking to have more virtualized network services that are packaged with their SD-WAN. This is what we at IDC call the software-defined branch. You may also hear of it talked about the SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. So having network and security functions that are virtualized or cloud-based that are integrated with the SD-WAN deployment is something that we're seeing organizations think more seriously about. So that could be having wireless LAN components integrated in, having an IoT gateway integrated in, having visibility and analytics integrated in. There are a number of different virtualized or cloud-based network and security services that folks are increasingly looking to have packaged and deployed with their SD-WAN. And I think in the future years, as we continue to do this survey, that will continue to rise up in importance into the future. So, Andy, what's your takeaway on this slide?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, as an independent company, prior to having met Juniper, 128 Technology pioneered the best technology, session smart routing and secure vector routing for redefining WAN connectivity. And I'm happy to talk with anyone about that anytime they want after this webinar. But we really missed the complexity issue. We just didn't get it. I mean, even sophisticated network operators who can run their own network want simpler and easier things to do. And so people want to take complexity out of their operations, both enterprises and service providers. Complexity is cost, complexity is risk, complexity is a lack of agility. And so, one of the things that we learned when we met Juniper in their AI-driven enterprise, they have something called Marvis, which is an intelligent assistant. And they have the ability for machines to configure machines. They have the ability to harvest telemetry and data to know what's going on, to proactively solve problems before trouble tickets are even provided. And I think I think everyone else is going to copy them, because there's no other way that you're going to deal with complexity when all the forces of how we consume things and where things are and new technologies are just driving more complexity. But it's a business imperative to eliminate complexity. We're going to have to use the very same technology that's making things more complex to making them simpler. And so I do think we're going to see the rise of Marvis-like intelligent agents that are going to be a lot smarter and are going to drive out cost and risk.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And I think this third data point speaks to that ability to improve automation and self-provisioning, I think speaks exactly to that. So I wanted to dive into this first survey data point around more integrated policy management across the WAN and the LAN. And our next data point speaks specifically to that. So we asked, how likely would our respondents be to work with their existing enterprise campus local area networking vendor when deploying SD-WAN? And you can see more than half said that they would be very likely to do that. Another 30% said somewhat likely. So more than 80% are saying that they're going to be likely to deploy an SD-WAN technology that from their enterprise campus LAN vendor as well. And so the obvious follow-up question is, well, why is that important? What advantages do you get from having SD-WAN technology that integrates with your enterprise networking needs across the wired or wireless? And, we talked about this a little bit. Having the ability to centrally create application policies that stretch across the LAN and the WAN, being able to provide optimized application experience, regardless of where that device is coming in, whether it's in the campus or the branch, having easier deployment across the WAN because of these integrations with the LAN, having these consistent security policies across users and devices across the LAN and the WAN. And I think my favorite part of this slide is the bottom response, which is, I don't see any advantage of an SD-WAN technology that integrates with my enterprise campus network. 0 respondents said that. And so the point is that there are a number of opportunities to provide more efficient management of both your LAN and your WAN if you have integrations across those. And I think this is one of the keys that we're seeing in the SD-WAN market. We're seeing a number of SD-WAN vendors build out some of these integrations across the LAN and the WAN. So this I think is going to be another key for driving this market into the future, is having this ability to have this platform-based approach that allows you to manage multiple areas of your network and LAN and WAN, I think is a real key to that. And Andy, I mean, this is something that Juniper does, right?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is that we started as an independent business, and we talked about agility, we talked about resilience, we talked about cost. But today, when somebody is running their network on Microsoft Teams or on Zoom and it's not working, they actually don't care why it's not working. Is it not working because of the wireless LAN or the wired LAN or the WAN, or because it's not working in one of the data centers in the cloud? They really don't care. They just know that it's not working and that it's not a positive experience and it's having a negative business outcome. And so I believe that what we're witnessing is software-defined wide area networking becoming part of an overall solution that is experiential based for a digital enterprise transformation. And that's what this data here shows. It's what we're seeing too. And it's happened actually over the last 18 months. You know, if I go back 18 months ago, we would go in and sell independently as a piece of technology that would allow you to really make your WAN resilient, really make your WAN extensible for the kinds of things you want to do. I fast forward 18 months, and I can't tell you the number of times I'm running into where the full stack is so much more valuable. And so I don't think we're going to see software-defined WAN as a standalone product category and standalone marketplace nearly the way we thought it was going to be. This data corroborates that. What I'm seeing corroborates that. And the ability for you to effectively and with agility to deploy these services and to have a mean time to repair that makes sense and to have a pathway to managing these things tells you that the very likely and somewhat likely is really about 85% of the market. That's a big part of the market.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. And as I think about how folks can actually implement something with more efficient management across the LAN and the WAN, I think about, again, taking this platform-based approach that would allow you to have some of those integrations across these domains. And this is where I think that cloud-based platforms are going to be very important for this. Because if you think about a cloud-based platform that allows you to, again, centrally control these policies across these domains, that gives you centralized visibility across multiple, different domains across the LAN and the WAN, I think that as folks are thinking about SD-WAN and LAN management coming together, I think the cloud-based management is going to become an increasingly important part of that as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about the challenge and the criticality. So when I started 7 years ago, I would walk into people's offices and I would say, tell me about your network. And if they were being honest, it was a very long dissertation on several whiteboards. I mean, it was really complicated stuff. And trying to figure out exactly what was going on was really difficult. Okay, well, we know that things have only gotten more complicated. And the other thing we know is that they've only become more important and impactful to the way businesses monetize their services and their applications and engage with their customers. So if we start with what we knew was wicked complicated 7 years ago, and we ramp up that complexity, but we also turbocharge it with the fact that this is really more important from a business than it's ever been before, it's got to be easier. You got to know what's going on in your network. You got to be able to make changes dynamically. And the only way you're going to do that is you need to start to integrate and centralize your policies. I mean, otherwise, you're running a business where you don't know what's in your aisles and you can't change anything in your aisles. That's a pretty tough business to run. So, yeah, I think this is going to happen.
Yeah, and so as we move on to our last survey data point we'll be sharing today, this is really all about visibility across networks and the importance of having insights into what's happening in your network. And we wanted to ask our survey respondents, what specifically would be most helpful from a visibility and analytics perspective for your SD-WAN. So this is really getting to what are folks really looking for from a visibility and analytics standpoint when they're deploying SD-WAN. And you can see some of the top responses here are around visibility into all the networks used on the WAN, both in and out of your control. So having insights into what's happening in my network and also what's happening outside of my network. Insight into the performance, into the SLA performance monitoring and reporting. We're seeing more and more contracts being SLA driven today. So folks want to be able to have insights into that SLA performance. Insights into cloud-based applications, SaaS and IaaS applications that are accessed over the WAN. So they want to be able to have integrated visibility and analytics across their networks and these cloud-based networks as well. And then, again, that integrated visibility across the WAN and the LAN as well. So, if you take a step back here, visibility and analytics is just so critically important to enabling so many things that can be done on the network. If you are looking to have more automation in your network, if you're looking to better secure your network, visibility is really foundational for both of those things. Without having an understanding of what's happening in your network, how can you automate it? How can you get full security of that network? And so this, I think, speaks to the importance of visibility and analytics for SD-WAN deployments today. And I think it really sort of is foundational for building advanced capabilities on top of this. And again, these are going to be some of the keys that we see folks prioritizing when they're thinking about visibility and analytics for their SD-WAN.
So around the shop, of course, it's a virtual shop, as we all are living in. But around the shop at Juniper, we have a saying, which is experience is the new uptime. And actually, that's really important to understand. And experience is the sum total of just about all this that's on the screen. You have to understand what's going on. Understanding what's going on is a predicate for figuring out, are you meeting the requirements for the particular application or service that you are currently using to digitally engage with a customer, an internal or external customer of your corporation? How hard is it to understand what's going on? And the answer is it's really hard. This is not one route path. This isn't one TCP session that's happening between me and whomever's on the other side of the screen. Every single one of these little windows is a different session. We've got all sorts of TCP retransmits. We've got people moving. We've got IP addresses changing. We've got security abstraction in between. We've got bidirectionality. We don't even have symmetric path selection on the internet. And so people have built businesses out of forensically collecting all of this information and serving it up, tying it all together. But that's not sufficient. We actually need to understand right now how it's going and make a change, not put any new connections on this particular path if it's not working well. That's a really tall order. I absolutely agree that its visibility really matters. It's not about a link being green. It's not about an aggregate SLA on a span, because I may have interactive and non-interactive communications. I may have latency, which I think is the new currency. I may have latency requirements that in the aggregate the span meets, but in individual sessions and services, it's failing on half of them. And so collecting this understanding and putting it in the context of the end-to-end reality of the requirements of the service or the application is really what's required if we're going to be comfortable having our business truly digitally transformed. But I agree with everything that's here. I really do. And I would say experience is the new uptime.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, Andy. Well, those are the slides I was going to share today, and maybe we'll just close it up with some final thoughts here. And a final thought from me would be around, as you're thinking about modernizing your network, as you're thinking about investing in some of these platform approaches, I would say think about what's important for your business. I think, we've been talking a lot about technology today. Some pretty specific things you should think about as you're deploying technology. At the end of the day, take that step back and think about what's important for your business. What are my business's overall goals for the future? Is that, increased reliance on the cloud? Is that, having good experiences, for my employees or my customers? think about what those high-level goals are for your IT department, for your business overall, and then think about what sort of technology solutions are needed to put into place to achieve those. And because, a lot of times technology is the easy part, right? This stuff, as we talked about, is really easy to deploy. You connect it to the cloud, you plug it in, and, it allows you to do this automated provisioning. So I think it's important to think about, how can these help enable your business to meet its goals into the future? And I would also say, think about that in a long-term perspective as well. Think about where your organization is today. Think about where your organization is going to be in 3 to 5 years, and what that distributed enterprise network is going to look like, and what sorts of technologies you would need to be able to support that business into the future. So that would be my last takeaway that I would share with you. Andy, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
Yeah. So I named my business 128 Technology. And the reason I named it 128, if you're older than 40, you might remember that Route 128, which is the route going around Boston, used to be called America's Technology Highway. And actually, that's where IP routing was invented, a company called Proteon. And we really felt there was a growing misalignment between the way computers were connecting and the way we were operating networks versus the use cases that these networks were undergoing. And so we had a saying around our shop, which was, if you could fix the router, you could fix the network. And so by advancing IP routing within the context of existing IP routing infrastructure, because nobody's throwing out the half of the $500 billion of network storage and compute that's out there. But if you could advance it in place, if you could innovate in place, you could really have a positive impact. And what really excited me about talking to Juniper a year ago is that they were committed to that vision. And so our engineering organizations are joined at the hip. And you will see session smart routing and secure vector routing. These are the kinds of things that are going to be extensible into the standards communities, and they're going to show up in Juniper's cloud efforts, in their AI-driven enterprise, and they're going to show up in other types of products. And so what I would say, I've noticed that there are some really interesting questions here. We've already been hard at work at that and can really show you some products that I think will make a big difference as you transform your wide area networking. So if folks want to reach out, I think, Kenny, there must be a mechanism on this webinar to provide your information. I will make sure that we get together, we bring the right people for you, and we can have a brief substantive conversation to see whether or not this is something that really would make your day, because that's what we want to do. And Brandon, thank you very much for your time and your effort. Obviously, this is something that's near and dear to our heart, and anybody that helps us, put an oar in the water and row, we just want to say thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you found this conversation insightful and some of our survey data results interesting. I hope they resonate with what you're seeing as well. And yeah, thanks for the Juniper team for inviting me on. So thanks, Andy. Always great to chat with you and have these conversations. I look forward to more in the future.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye.